Has Kershaw lost their damn minds? And what about these other companies that are also doing limited edition knives and sprint runs and so on for an absurd amount of money?
Hey, look, top floor lifestyle, chef and boy, I'm cooking up. Way too high, ain't coming down. You see me if you looking up. I don't really talk too much, so I'm running numbers.
Today we are checking out something very special. This is a limited edition Kershaw model. However, this is $500. Yes, $500. And we'll talk later about whether or not that price is justified or not. This knife is the best Kershaw I've tried. Hands down, it is amazing. I freaking love this thing. I'm sad that I can't keep it. It has a titanium subframe lock handle with CRUWEAR steel and 14 steel combined. The spine of the knife is 14C and the bottom part of the blade is CRUWEAR, which are both some of my favorite steels on the planet. As you guys know, CRUWEAR is one of my all-time favorite steels. It's like number 2 out of all the steels that there is, you know, of my favorite. And then 14C is absolutely my favorite budget steel. I've spoke about that in like a crazy amount. So to have both those steels in one steel, that's special in itself for me. Now, then you take and consider USA made, limited to 500 pieces, 50th year anniversary knife, and all the other bells and whistles that this knife has. This thing is pretty damn amazing, but is it worth $500? Let's open up this special edition 50th year anniversary Kershaw. I gotta say, guys, this thing's amazing. It is so amazing. They did an incredible job with this knife. I love pretty much everything about it. It has a titanium frame lock with incredible manual action, phenomenal detent. And this blade, this Wharncliffe, modified sheep's foot Wharncliffe blade, whatever you want to call it, with 14C and CRUWEAR. 14C and CRUWEAR, that is amazing. Beautiful choil, great geometry. I'm not sure the HRC they're running the steel at. Hopefully it's 64, 65, right around there. But look at how this line flows right through the knife. That is amazing. And I did notice, if you really look, you can actually see the separation of the steels. I don't know if it'll come over the camera, but there's like a copper wire or a copper line running across the top of this black band down the blade. It's gonna be very hard to pick up, but it's there. And then this goes into this carbon fiber that wraps all the way around the ass end of the knife. You have the sub frame lock that is a titanium sub frame lock, so it's screwed in. So basically this piece right here is a separate piece that's screwed in on the inside right there. And it has a steel lock bar insert, which is amazing. Now let's talk about this action, man, because this action is incredible. Look at this thing. This thing is an absolute guillotine, and you would look at the flipper tab and think, because you can't see the pivot on this side, but you would think that this flipper tab is not going to be as powerful as it is. This detent is, listen, a phenomenal detent, and it's a comfortable flipper tab. It's a great flipping action. Then these ergonomics, it looks so futuristic, but this thing is amazing in the hand. You can tell the hand was thought of when making this. The way your palm wraps around this part right here, and the way how you kind of trigger pull it in a way, and your thumb lands right over the spine while allowing a ton of pressure without interrupting the blade, because if your thumb's right here and you're pushing through stuff, obviously it's in the way, right? But when it's back here, you're not. And you can still choke up. It just, man, like I said, very nice in the hand. This feels like it was meant to be squeezed. Then you have this taper, right? This cant that shoots downward, right? This thing is aiming at everything you want to cut, no matter what. Not in the reverse grip, but in any forward grip. Access to the lock bar, beautifully done. They got a nice chamfer. They knocked this back just slightly. and it's an absolute guillotine. I'm guessing it's ceramic caged bearings. Hopefully it is. I know sometimes they use steel caged bearings, but hopefully this one's ceramic. If it is steel, not that big of a deal. It still is an amazing action. So, but big knife, definitely a big knife, beautiful knife, looks good. The clip works great, by the way. Great in and out of the pocket. I did throw it in and out of the pocket. I did not use it because I do have to send this, you know, move this on as much as I'd like to just lose it, you know, and forget where I put it and never actually mail it back out. What's funny is it was a very similar knife to this that got me into folding knives. You know, I worked construction, and typically I would have like a Smith & Wesson knife or something like that, just like a cheap $10, $12, $13 knife that you could get. And they were junk, you know, you'd always lose them, break them, whatever. And I came upon a Kershaw, like I said, very similar to this. Same handle shape, same blade shape, but it was much more compact. It was like this big, like a lot more compact. And it was assisted. I believe it was using 14C. I'm not sure the blade still, but I want to say that it was something a little bit better than like, you know, the crap steel you get on the other knives. Anyways, the reason why I'm saying that is because it wound up being the best knife I had ever tried, folding knife wise, because I've always collected knives since I was a little kid, but folding knives, you know, to me were work knives. And when I got that knife, the edge lasted the longest I've ever seen an edge last. It was an assisted knife, but it was amazing, just amazing all the way around. And I fell in love with this knife, so much so that I wound up losing every single one I ever got. And every time I went and got a new one. And like I said, $65 on a knife was very expensive to me at the time. And was basically, at the time, was unheard of to spend on a pocket knife that I'm probably gonna lose, which I did many times. Then they discontinued it. So the last time I lost it, I could not replace it. But they had another model that was similar. It had 4 circles on it. I wound up getting that one instead. And that one was good. It wasn't quite like the original one I had, but it was still really good. And to this day, you know, Kershaw has a place in my heart for that reason, because, you know, because of trying a $65 knife instead of a $12, $13 knife, I wound up seeing the difference. I wound up really understanding like, oh, wow. If I spend this much more, this is how much better it gets. Like, this is so much better than if I spend this down here. And it starts making you wonder, that mystery. Well, what if I spend a little bit more? Where does that get me? You know, so shout out to Kershaw for getting so many people into the knife community. Has Kershaw lost their damn minds? And what about these other companies that are also doing limited edition knives and sprint runs and so on for an absurd amount of money? Well, as far as this one's concerned, I understand it. I think that this one's actually justified. But do I think this knife is worth $500? Absolutely not. Hell no, this is not a $500 knife, you know, not even a little bit. You know, I could point out a couple other knives that are $500 and ain't worth it either. But this one has a better argument to charge $500 than a lot of other knives that are $500 and should not be. Personally, for me, they can put the price at whatever they want. I just won't buy it. I don't care if it's a $20 product going for $1 million, I ain't gonna buy it, you know, so. And you don't have to either. And I would say if you're gonna complain about it, don't buy it. That's the thing. You know, and we all have the choice to either buy or not buy. You can't be mad at a company wanting to you know, charge more money than something's worth if there's a line of people lined up to buy it, right? So, you know, hey, I just say, you know, hey, put the price at whatever you want and I'll decide whether or not it's worth it for me. Yeah, it's $500, but it's only limited to 500 pieces, which makes this knife very desirable for collectors. This is a collector's piece. This is not a user. This is not something you should be taking out to the job site. As much as it would be great on the job site, this is a collector's piece. And mark my words, in a few weeks, you're gonna see them on eBay for double the price, $1,000 or better. They're probably gonna be even more than that. And that's just a fact. That's what's gonna happen because this is gonna be a very desirable knife and only 500 people are gonna be able to get it. So you know, they're probably going to sell really quick. And considering the materials that we've talked about, the action and everything else that this beautiful Kershaw offers, I can't argue with it, you know. 50th year anniversary, limited edition, materials, you know, and everything else. And also, it's a desirable knife from the past. This is a model they've done before. I think in 2010 they did it. And, you know, again, it was a very desirable knife. What about these other companies that are doing limited edition knives and sprint runs for an absurd amount of money? Because typically, they don't have like a rhyme or reason behind them like this one does. Typically, they're just limited edition knives. For what reason? Who knows? And a lot of times, they'll have 4 different versions, right? 4 different options, 4 different color options, but limited to, say, 200 pieces per color, right? And if those color options all sell out very fast, you bet your ass there's going to be another color option available very soon, also limited to a specific amount. So it's a win-win for the company because they get the base whether or not the knife is going to do well or not. So if it does well, they can make more versions. If it does not, well, then they're not going to sit on the shelf very long because there's not very many versions of them. So I understand it from a company's point of view, but I don't think that that is an acceptable reason to charge double or anything like that. To me, that should be the same amount of money that you would sell it otherwise. And some companies do that, and I respect that. If they're selling it for the same price they would otherwise, cool. But to throw limited edition on it or anything like that, that means limited edition, a special edition, you know, sprint run, whatever, and then charging an absurd amount, I think that's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. I don't think, even this knife right here, this knife is not worth $500. Let's be clear. It is not a $500 knife. I would say $300, $350 maybe, best, $350 is what I'm gonna say. Maybe even $400, but not $500. But all the other things is what makes it $500, not the actual knife itself. It's the collectibility and you know, how special it is and things like that. So other knives that are worth, say, $250, just because you stamp limited on there and you're not gonna do but say 400 pieces of it or however many you're gonna do, I don't think that that justifies raising the price to an absurd amount. I think in that case, stay away from knives like that, because then companies, you know, aren't gonna feel justified to do them like that. Because let's be clear, anything that comes from these companies is our own faults. 100%. When you have companies like Benchmade charging $522 for a $250 knife, come on. And why do I say $250 knife? You guys know what model I'm talking about. I don't have to say what model. Everybody knows what model I'm talking about because it's absolutely ridiculous. Well, you can go to somebody like American Blade Works. American Blade Works, a small company, one guy doing it all with amazing heat treatments, titanium, great action, so on and so on, so on, for like $330. So, you know, when you see that, then you look at a giant company, right? A $100 million company that's producing knives, not just one guy that's actually producing knives, trying to charge double or nearly double what, you know, other makers would be charging. That becomes a little outrageous. So, and I'm not saying that that was a sprint run or anything. I'm just saying that, you know, companies in some cases are starting to get a little absurd. They're starting to get a little ridiculous, but they can, because you buy them. I buy them. We collect them. We use them, whatever. But I do think sometimes it is justified, and I understand it, but then there's other times it's like, you guys are starting to take advantage of us wanting these knives, right? So I do think when it comes to that, you do need to have a clear-cut line of, no, this is absurd, I'm not doing this, and remind the company, or I don't want to say remind, but the company will know by your refusal to purchase that they have crossed the line, and you will quickly see them never do that again, or to quickly bring the price down. So my thoughts are something like this. this is worth it. I can't argue about Kershaw charging this much, and I really, really hope to see them do knives. And I want to be clear, not limited edition knives, not this money knives. I'm talking about like just manual operated knives with lesser materials for a decent price for people to get, that are something like what the bare knuckle once was and things like that, because I want the ability to recommend USA made knives to people in the $100 price range. I desperately want to be able to do that. And I honestly put Kershaw in that category. People ask me, how can you say it's on Kershaw to do that? How can you say that when there's so many other companies that could be doing it? Why are you putting it on Kershaw? And here's why. Because they always have. They've been the company for the past 20 years. They've been the company that we look at to get affordable USA made knives that are done well, that are good knives, that aren't knives from the 1970s. You know what I mean? They're not knives that are vintage, you know, even though they're brand new. They're new knives with new with everything new, right? And they don't have to be anything crazy. Aluminum, you know, just like the bare knuckle, aluminum, subframe lock with 14C28N, you know, $100. That would be amazing. Manual operational, has to be manual. So hopefully we do see that from Kershaw. I really want to see more manual knives from Kershaw, and I'm really hoping that that is something that they are doing more often, because as I have seen, as we all have seen the past year or two, Kershaw's coming out swinging. Kershaw ain't playing games anymore, and I love to see it. I love to see Kershaw competing with all the other companies the way they have been the past 2 years. So keep it up, Kershaw. You guys are awesome. If you guys like this type of content, I'm going to put some cards up on the screen for you to click on. Work hard, stay tough. Until next time, peace!